All right, we're going to talk about inking your SAC project. So we've got some couple of different pens, and certainly you have the sort of standard Sharpie with the extra fine point and the fine point, which will work, right? But if you do go to start this project and you have to be inking your SAC, I recommend using the fine line pen first to be doing the inking, and then you can go over your project with the thicker pen if you need to. You'll notice that I'm going back in and I am just going drawing out this sack, and I am doing it with just the single pen. Certainly I can come back over it again, use the heavier pen to come back in and say do the outline work, and just going to work on the outside of my sack here. And then come back in again with my fine pen to detail it, where I sort of a thick to thin little curves, adding a little bit of a wrinkle here, a little bit of an inset there. I might be able to go back into here, taper that line a little bit there, a little bit more curve there, right? Getting a little more detail in with my lines, so I can certainly do that. And if I wanted to come back up here and sort of add a little bit of a pointy tip to the top of my tie-off, I can do that. A little bit of a tip on here, right? Adding a little bit of something so it's not quite that blunt, round edge. So see, I can go back in and add those little parts there to this. Now, this being said, for this character, and this using just sort of using the Sharpie, right, to come in and sort of design my character here. Taper that line there, and to get some corners, some edges here. Right. What you can do, or I recommend for yours, is that if you have just the one tapered pen, go ahead and use it. But you can see by this, we can also do it this way also and get a nice, strong, clean inking outline. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is use my tapered line, and my tapered pen is a standard one I usually talk about that I get at the Daiso store that has this thin to thick to thin variation with one pen. So, you know, if you're going to put your money into getting a pen, this one's technically actually a little bit more expensive, the Sharpie, and certainly these are quite a bit less expensive. These are only $1.50. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to pull over to the page that we were working on last time to show you my full page with my character design for the SAC project. You'll notice again I have the completed 5 poses needed for the character spin, and down below I have the 4 poses that were required of the same character showing some kind of a emotional state where they're exuding some sort of emotion. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start on the upper left-hand side and start with my inking. And it's okay that if I need to rotate my page, I can certainly go ahead and do that. So let me go ahead. And notice as I'm going back through, I'm just kind of doing these longer strokes here, rotating. Now I can come back in and do the outline work, a little heavier. So I can push and go one more time on the outside of the character. And doing this gives a little bit of depth to it, to the character. And it also shows a little bit more weight, right? Helps to give a little bit of girth, that character. And it also helps to define and give it more presence. And you can see from the inking right there, you can see the depth and difference there between the thicker and the thinner line. Now what you can do is you can do some tapering. So like when a line comes here when it ends and it goes into a solid or a larger space, I can sort of round that, taper that up a little bit, and to make that a little bit thicker right there. All right, I can right here at the base of this, go in and taper that, show a little bit more curvature. See, that helps to give a little more curve to that. Same thing up here. I go ahead and curve this line right there and taper that so a little more curvature on that, and then curve this other side in here. So that's pretty good. I feel good with that one. Let's go ahead and go to my next one. And here, here. This is a little piece that's sort of hanging off the side there. This comes over, and this foot certainly is closest to the viewer. Now come up with this one. That one's going to cut off. Close that gap. And remember, as you are inking, you want to make sure you close your gap. You don't have any open spaces on any of this because we want to make sure we can fill this with color when we get into the animation program. Remember, this is my 3/4 view, so I'm seeing just from a 3/4 angle here. A gap right there. Going to close that gap up. There we go. Now let's go over to the next one. And pushing fairly hard there to get a heavier line. A lighter line. And the other side, we just barely see anything there. And a little bit of that line right there in the middle. We don't see the center line on top and the bottom because they're really cut off. Only thing we're seeing here on the side is just this little piece here. So there I've got that. Now I'm going to go back in and do again that heavier line on the outside. Little buns there. Top again, I'm better at pulling a line than I am pushing a line. So I tend to always want to go back to a point that's furthest away from me to do my line work. So I'm doing a thinner line here. It's on the back side, and I can taper that line a little bit if I need to. Taper that a little bit. And draw the other side here. And I'm not going to draw that little line inside there because that's really in the front of the ear. That's really in the front on that one. So now my last one here on the back view. So let's go ahead and do this here. Bring that up and around. And this we really have this sort of thicker because this sort of cuts off. We're looking at the back view now. That's that bun. Buns number 2. Start back up on the top here. And I can go ahead and show that ear come back around. So ears on the back side. Little bits of pencil smudge in there. There we go. Thin that out a little bit. That foot coming from behind. Just a little line, and I've got this curve coming down. That's showing that sort of rump and that back side there, that little curvature there. Curve this a little bit, showing that curve coming in and down. And at this point, I've got my first row all taken care of, right? So I've got all my characters here on the 5 poses there. Then I go back into my exuberant ones here. So now I can have some fun here and come back in and do my characters that are sort of leaping forward, leaping up, showing different kinds of emotion. And again, being able to just taper that and go to my thin and thick line, close up these little gaps, make sure there's nothing showing, no little white spaces in between the lines. There we go, done with that one. Done and done. Looks good, I like him. Now let's go ahead and go on to the next one. So we're going to down, down, and then here up and over. This comes down. That tush, got buns there, there. And this is a thinner line, thinner line, thinner line, and taper that up there a little bit more. Make that outside line a little bit thicker. Come up with this other foot, or a little tie off there. And let's get the other little tie off coming around. Thicken that line up just a little bit. And there we go. We have number 2. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to it's number 3 here. Got the tie off coming up and around. Got this little ear popping up over here. And then I've got this sort of big space I have to do here. So I'm going to go and start this by right here, start this ear, kind of bring it down. Bring up sort of the top of the head there. And this is sort of that long line we're following, kind of on the back of the torso, along down to the groin, down to the bottom of the sack. A little line coming up here. And the next one comes down, it's a little thicker. And then I get my other foot in, get the line there. And my little foot. We'll tie off and close that gap there. We don't want to see that tie off there because it's sort of leading out the other way. Let's do a little bit here from the belly coming around. There we go. There's my next one. And I got one last one to do here. So let's go ahead and get right into it. There's the belly there. Comes back around. Comes in and up. And around. As you can see, this really takes a bit of concentration. The fact that you really sort of have to unplug the telephone and just kind of have a quiet little space here where you can do this if you can. I tend to close the door up so that way I keep the cats out. My son is sleeping still this morning, so he's not in asking me lots of questions. So I'm able to concentrate and just do this inking. And it's important to have a little bit time here, especially if you're doing something here. So there we go. I have my little character, and this is my running away, looking back character. So I've got all 5 characters now. So we're going to be required to go back in and just to scan this top row. This is the top row is the only thing that we need for our character spin, and that is going to be our next video. So the next thing you're going to have to do is to get ready for that is to go ahead and erase some of the setup lines on the top row, and then we'll photograph without any shadows in bright indirect light, or scan, if you can, this top row, and that's what you're going to need ready to go for the next video. Have fun. Have a good time inking. Talk to you soon.